All right. Hello, everybody. How you guys doing today? It's Tuesday at 5:30 here in California, and we are now live on Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, all that good stuff. So we have a bit of advice today with Sean Mulroney, like baloney, but not full of baloney. Um, we have over 100,000 likes on Facebook. And I'm Joshua Birdsell, the show host today, and I'm from Alabama originally. I moved out here to California and ended up starting my own business. So I'm a young entrepreneur. I'm 27 years old. And so we're going to get a little bit of advice today from Sean Mulroney. So, Sean, if you don't mind introducing yourself a little bit.
Well, what's up? No, I am not full of baloney. Thank you for that introduction there, Josh. And I'm glad you're from Alabama.
That's right, Alabama.
Sweet home Alabama.
That's right.
That's right. And then you got culture shock out in California, right? From Alabama to the fields of California. But well, thanks for having me on here, Josh, and I appreciate it. Of course, shout out to Dennis too. Dennis is a good friend. I look up to him. He's a great, man. So, a bit of advice, and I think we should change the name of the show tonight. It says a bit of advice, but as far as having me on, it's a big bunch of advice with me. So, no pun intended too, Josh. But I'm extremely excited to be on the show with you tonight, Josh, and thank you for allowing me to do this.
Oh, no problem. So tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your journey, like your bio, like you was telling me a little bit earlier.
Sure. Well, long story short, I youngest of 5 kids, grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, grew up in the concrete jungle, streets, grew up real fast. My dad died when I was 6 years of age. Me being the youngest of 5, that was really traumatic to me, and didn't know how to deal with it. And of course, during that era, my older siblings, I'm the like I said, the youngest. My next sister to me is about 9.5 years older than me. My oldest brother's 18 years older than me. And when my father passed away, it was just a bad time because I was real close to him, being that I was 6, me being the baby, but. I can remember experiencing marijuana and alcohol at the age of 6. I'm not proud of that, but I was. I thought it was cool growing up on that. Of course, when my dad died, my mother had to work, quite a few hours. Couldn't afford a babysitter, so my sisters raised me. My sisters are the world to me. My family is. I love my sisters. They, helped me through a lot of things, but. Run a lot of bad choices at that time, and of course by the age of 13 I was into heavy drugs and alcohol. So 13 all the way through 21, I played sports in high school. I played football and baseball. I did pretty well at that, but then as I started going through my life, drug addiction, bad things happening, family, so I had family and friends that died of drug overdoses. Heroin overdoses, drinking and driving accidents. 2 weeks after I graduated, I had a friend die from a drinking and driving accident. Multiple suicides in family and in.
That's terrible.
It was all me, and then of course I got a reality check. It is terrible, Josh. I mean, it sort of was shaking me, and then my mother was always my rock. Of course, she was there to love me through all of this, even when nobody else did.
Right.
And of course, at 21, I sort of got a slap upside the head, reality check. And somebody said to me, who was a mentor to me, he says, you're not an exception to the rule. And he says, what if that was you? And he said that your choice is yours, but not the consequences. So the choices that you make, you can do anything you want to. But guess what? What about your friends that it did catch up to them? They had consequences. Now,
right.
They're either, in the grave, or they're suffering from, an ailment or disabled or something like that. And,
right. So how did you overcome that addiction at such a young age? Like how did you make yourself get more mature enough to where you realize like, hey, because I mean, sometimes that takes people years. I mean, sometimes people get up in their 40s before they realize that it's too late, and Unfortunately, I've
Yes,
seen it so much that I didn't have to experience that. I learned from watching everybody else that hey, that's not the road I want to take. I want to be more successful and make something out of my life. And because a small change, it starts with just the smallest little thing, and then it leads up to big
that's
great
right.
things.
Right.
So how did you overcome that?
And it did. Well, and like I said, I had a lot of fear. Number one, Josh, there was certain drugs I would not do. Okay, weed was my go-to. Alcohol was my main thing. I mean, I drank like nobody's business. I mean, I would, it was there. But the wake-up call that the reality was, it's like I had a fearful of, here it's happening around me. People are dying around me, right? And those people that do get involved in drugs and alcohol have to go through rehab or whatever.
Right.
But I just got like whenever stopped, cold turkey. And what happened was I was in fear for my life because I thought, what, I'm next. That's what I always felt in my mind. You're thinking that death is on your doorstep. You're just one choice away from going down that path. And that I had a good friend of mine. His name's Brad Cranston, who took me under his wing, and he loved me through this and told me that here's the plan. Here's what you're doing. This is the next step that you're going to take, or it could happen. And I might have made it through, and I could have still been addicted. But I just said, you know what, enough's enough. Enough death around me. Nothing. I had to stop it. Because alcoholism ran in my family, and I just said, okay, enough's enough. I didn't want the same thing that happened to my friends and my family to happen to me. And I just said, that's it. And I just threw my hands up and I said, you're right. And he gave an illustration about, different people that he knew that are either in prison, they're in the grave. And most of the time that's what happens. Either somebody that gets addicted to drugs and alcohol, either they're in prison because they're stealing to take care of their addiction, or they end up in an early grave, or they end up in an institution.
Right.
And so
And this
I
happens
said,
on a daily basis. This it happens
yes,
every day. So everybody's like, "Oh, it won't happen to me." Oh, yes, it can most certainly happen
that's
to you.
right.
So it's good for
That's
you. So
exactly
you
right.
had to have a lot of self discipline to be able
Yes.
to go in there and say, you know what, hey, like you said, you threw your hands like, hey, it's time for a change. We got to make this happen. It's self motivation. So you said what was his name? Who helped you?
His name's Brad. Brad
Brad
Cranston
Brad
is his name.
Brad
Yes,
Branston.
yes,
And so how
yes,
did you
yes.
meet him?
Well, here's the thing. I met him through church.
Hmm.
I met him. My mother was really strong in her faith.
Okay.
My mother was a prayer warrior. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? She used to go out. I used to go out and party all the time, Josh. And my mother would say this to me. She goes, I'd go out. She said, "I'm praying for you," and I tell my mom, "I don't want you praying for me." And the reason why is because I knew what I was going to be doing. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And it was like I didn't want to feel that. So the whole time I would never feel comfortable. I felt out of
Yeah,
place.
you felt guilty.
Yes, I had terrible guilt. And I was like, this ain't right. And then so my mother, here's what she said to me, Josh, which was amazing. And whenever I came back and got my life figured out, she said, she said, Sean, she's about 4 foot 11 inches tall. Okay, my mom's from Dublin, Ireland. My mother and father were born in Ireland. Okay,
I got you.
and she still had that
My
Irish
wife's
brogue.
4'11", so I
Yeah,
understand.
yes, you got so 4'11", and she's Irish. So
Okay.
she told me if I'd get too big for her, that she'd bust me upside the head with a bat, and she'd point that finger at me.
Yeah.
And so my mother, told me, she said, you could ignore what I said to you for years, but you couldn't ignore my prayers. That's what she said to me.
That's right. That's so
And
awesome. Hey, prayer's
for
powerful
that
now.
power and grip, it is,
It's
and it
powerful.
changed my life. And that changed my life
That's so
completely.
good.
Whenever she did that, and I told her, "Mom, I'm giving all this stuff up," she looked at me. We had a crying fest, and I was hugging her. She was hugging me, and she's like, "Man, that's when she told me that statement."
Yeah.
And through that all. Brad Cranston, who was a mentor, he was taking care of the youth, and by this time I was not, 20 years of age. I was already out of, any kind of youth group or nothing. But he took me and took notice of me and said, "Hey, let me be there for you." And he was, and I didn't understand what love outside of my family was until that day. And so he just told me and was pretty blunt with me. And I needed that. I needed somebody just to, I was getting shook, just because of other people, fall into addiction. Well, I needed somebody to say, okay, well, you can make it too. And that's when I turned my life around. And, I contributed to, my faith, my praying mother,
Right.
and somebody that cared for me. Because you know what, Josh, here's the bottom line. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
And he cared for me and didn't have to care for me, but he was a constant in my life. And I said, okay, I turned, I did an about face, I did a 180, and I haven't looked back since. And I haven't touched, drugs and alcohol since then.
So what's some advice that you can give to someone that might be going through the same type of addiction or the same type of lifestyle? What's your advice to them that you've learned now that you didn't know then?
Boy, yes, if I knew then what I know now, here's what I'd say. People have said, what would you say to your younger self?
Yes.
And I would say that it's not worth it, number one, okay? It's not worth it to put myself through that pain in my body because I hurt my body. I mean, I did. I mean, that's a whole other story. I hurt my body. It changed. It's my addiction to other things. You know what I'm saying? You replaced it with other things, and it's just not bad. I had that addictive personality. So what I'd say is it's not worth it. And then the other thing is that you try something, remember, there's always that consequence at the end. And the reason why people don't come out of their addiction and they can't get out of their addiction, because you got to go through the series of doors that got you there. And that's what makes it hard. You got to go through that door, and you got all the way out here. You're like out there in the middle of nowhere. Now you got to go back the same way you came in. And that takes a lot of work. That takes a lot of, getting around it. So my thing is surround yourself with people that care about you, get accountable, and get around the support that you need and listen. That's what we have, 2 ears and 1 mouth. And whenever you're addicted, we're supposed to listen twice as much as we talk.
Right.
So I make sure that I communicate and who you communicate with and who you hang around with, because you are or soon will be exactly what your friends are. So it's who you hang around with. I picked a lot of wrong friends at that time.
Right.
Now, I was the bad influence, a lot of reasons. I'm not going to blame my friends because of what I did. But the thing is who you surround yourself with. If you're not accountable and if you don't subject yourself to somebody that's older than you that really cares for you, then you're going to go down and you're going to get away, and it's going to be eventually you're going to be so far out in the middle of the ocean that it's so hard to come back, and then you're going to drown in the ocean of despair and addiction and not be able to come back. So you know what? Make sure you surround yourself with the right people. Stay away from the wrong influences.
So true. And I want to thank everybody for joining us right now. We have Derek Gibson, Philip, Nick Burrows, Chris Thompson, Cindy, Stevie Tingle, Cliff, Stevie Smith, Dustin, and Shane Johnson. I want to give a shout out to Shane Johnson because he has experienced the same thing you did. He had a really bad addiction, and he actually kind of went viral a little bit on the internet, helping people change their life with his story.
Wow.
and just by pictures, a before and after picture, and
Sure.
that it went viral, and he dealt with that, and man, it was so good to see him come out of that, because I remember us talking about it, be like, man, we hate that, what Shane was going through at the time, and there's really nothing you can do for them. They have to help themselves, and he did. He pulled all the way through it and still been pulling strong, and I see his post all the time.
That's awesome.
He done gained him a little bit of weight from what he was, and he's riding horses and stuff. And this is back in Alabama, so this lets you know, it goes all over the country, all over the world. People are dealing with this, and it's something that needs to be addressed.
Yes.
And it's great that when people do right things and do something good after coming from that lifestyle, they end up getting recognition like that over the internet and things of that nature, which is amazing because it gives them a little bit of like push and like, hey, somebody cares about us. Somebody really, is paying attention to me. So like, they like that. It's really good. And I appreciate all the positivity that comes from this world, which, because there's not a lot of positivity, but there is a little bit in that sense when you see something like that, or you see like a rescue dog or something like that. It's awesome how that fills us with joy, and we need a lot more of that. So especially shout out to Shane Johnson and everybody else that has dealt with things like that and overcome it. But
yes, that's awesome.
So yeah,
awesome.
I just seen him join, so I was like, man, I hope that he gets to hear this this part of the segment. But
that is great.
So how did you start? You went from drugs, and then you said you started eating, and so tell us a little bit about that journey.
Well, here's the thing. and you think about drugs and how, real quick on this, is how drugs and alcohol has escalated. Heroin used to be a dark alley, urban, problem. Now it's a suburban problem. Now it's the middle class. It's like the opioid, the opiates, and the painkillers, all that stuff. So today somebody tried heroin, and today somebody died of heroin.
Yeah.
That's how bad it is. You know what I'm saying? So it's not everybody's going towards heroin, and they can get $5. Kids are trying it, and the average age is between the age of 16 and 18 of deaths right now. I mean, in St. Louis, where I'm from, there was 1,000 deaths last year from opioids.
And where are you located now? Are you located
in St. Louis? In St. Louis, Missouri. Yes.
Are you still there now?
Yes, correct.
Okay,
yes,
awesome.
I am. I'm in St. Louis, and so with all that, as I say, that drugs, people that are trying it, it's getting less and less. The average age of drug use, what I'm saying, is getting less and less.
What's some advice that you can give somebody that's being like somebody's trying to give it to them? Like, what's your advice to somebody that
somebody that you need to stay away from it, because the thing
don't
is about
try it, right?
It's so if you do, it's so euphoric you don't want to go back. That's why it's so hard to get out of that. And here's the other thing about heroin too. Philip Seymour Hoffman, who was a man that was an actor, and he died of a heroin overdose, right? Well, he was clean for 20 years. And so this is what happens. You can get clean. So what happens is you build up that tolerance and you take so much of it. So from 20 years, so he gave it up 20 years ago. And then how he died was he had to get the same high that he needed 20 years ago. He had to take that same amount that he did 20 years ago. And your body can't handle that. And he keeps pumping it into him to get that ultimate high or that euphoric high. And that's how they overdose, because you need that same amount that you did whenever you build it up. And so what I say to this is that once you take that, it's euphoric. That's why people put it in their eyeballs. You know why? Because it doesn't have the tracks. You know what I mean? People are smoking it, but they do, because as soon as it hits your skin, you don't feel it. It goes all the way. You're numb. I mean, you are extremely numb. So the thing is you stay away from it, because the thing is that the more you get into it, it's going to take you down a bad path, no matter what. And people are bypassing because they say, what about marijuana? Well, not everybody that does marijuana will do heroin, but everybody that's tried heroin has tried marijuana. And so what happens is they're like bypassing it and going right to it. So what you asked, and I just wanted to throw that little bit in there, dealing with this, and I've had to deal with families that have lost their children. I mean, big time. I mean, we've been on walks and stuff like that, and just seeing parents that lose their 16 or 17 or 15-year-old to overdose is a bad thing, and they never knew it. They didn't even know that was going on. But so what I did is I got out of that. So whenever I did, I replaced it. I had bad eating habits. I didn't know, healthy, all that stuff. So I played sports, and then of course I went to college, and I started getting my sleeping habits were terrible, 3 hours of sleep a night. And then eating fast food. I eat fast food like it was going out of style. I drank pop. I call it pop. Other people call it soda. We get in fights about that. I'm going to call it pop until I die.
They call it Coke in Alabama. Honestly, it's all Coke. Pepsi, everything's all Coke.
I know why. That's what
I don't know.
I'll have a Coke. Well, what kind of Coke do you want? Well,
exactly.
I want Coke. Seriously.
That's a Southern thing.
It's a war. That's why we have civil wars all the time, because over pop and soda and Coke. So what happened is I transferred that, and then having a bad life. So eating late at night, before you go to bed, fast food, all this stuff. So I gained weight when I got married. I've been married for 20 years now. I'll be married August 1st will be my 20th year anniversary.
Ooh, congratulations! I'm almost at 2 years. I'm married too. So
hey, congratulations, man! That's what I say. But my wife, congratulate her because she stayed with me for 20 years.
So that's the same thing. Same thing on my side over here. My wife stayed with me too. Dealt with me. So
wait for 20. That's what I said. She's major league. I'm minor league. That's how we. That's all I can say, man. I married out of my league. So all of a sudden, when I got married in 1998, I was in upper 300 pounds. Okay, and I was a functional person that was obese. Okay, I was traveling all over the place. I have a nonprofit I started called Teens of America. I spoke in schools all over the place. 100 plus thousand students a year. And so, long story short, I did all that, got married, and I got an infection in 2000 on my leg while I was in Louisiana, matter of fact. And so I was down there. I thought I got a spider bite, got sick, and found out it was cellulitis. So fast forward, I had got that cellulitis from 2000 to 2004 multiple times, and then I landed in the hospital in 2004 with Stevens-Johnson syndrome from allergic reaction to Cipro, and my leg was swollen like a balloon. I mean, it was turning black. I didn't know what lymphedema was. I didn't know what cellulitis was. I knew it. I was getting these infections, but why was that happening?
Right.
So could it have been the consequence from me putting drugs in my, age, genetics, you know what I'm saying? Bad. So it was like a perfect storm, Josh. Bad eating habits, health, putting stuff into my system that I should have never put in at 6 years of age, whenever you're not even, your body's not even fully developed. Why should you do that to your body? So I put my body through havoc, if you will. And so I remember being in hospital. The doctor saved my life. I was one dose away of taking that antibiotic. I would not be here. I almost died. And it was in my mucous membrane. And so I didn't weigh myself from 1998 to 2004, okay? But I knew I was gaining weight, okay? And so, long story short, I got there. My wife hit me on the scale. There was one on the bed. And she looked down, looked at me, and she didn't want to tell me. And I said, how much should I weigh? Jess, I'm thinking, probably 400 or over 400 pounds. She says, no, you're 567. I said, what? I said, yeah. She said, yep. And so all of a sudden, my highest weight I got to, Josh, was 687 pounds.
Wow.
I'm not proud of that. I did. It's my life.
But it's where you're at now. That really matters, is the fact that you like you said, you threw your hands up. Eventually got to your point and threw your hands up, and you're starting it over again. And that's a good thing, man, because we're supposed to grow in life. I really believe.
Yes.
But go ahead and continue on. Go ahead and continue on, man.
Well, like I said, that's 687. My pain has turned into my greatest platform, though. So twice. As a teenager, I started Teens of America. So my other pain of obesity, which I have been vocal about it, I did that, got to 687. I had a year where I didn't want to live. I had bad hospital stays. I was in the hospital. I had 18 infections since 2000, hospitalized 11 times, and almost died twice. Had sepsis, went septic, just bad. Fever, 104.9. My blood count was 26,000, which is normal between 7 and 10,000. And so I just wanted to die. My mother passed away in 2012. That was the worst year of my life. I mean, I had our first daughter. We took us 12 years to have our first daughter. And so my Madison, she's 7 now. Olivia, my second daughter's 4. And then we have Mackenzie, who's a year and a half, okay?
Blessings.
And so, I mean, it's just awesome. So whenever my daughters, okay, were born, it kept on getting real. I knew I needed to do something about my weight. Every person that's obese knows they need to get their weight off.
But it takes a lot of courage to talk about it. It takes a lot of courage to acknowledge it.
Nobody wants to talk about it.
Yeah, a lot of pride that you got to push to the side,
Pride, and also the fear of rejection. We're already being rejected. We're already judged. We already have the stigmas. We already have the assumptions that we're just fat, lazy. You don't care about yourself. You're a disgusting pig. I mean, you hear it all, okay?
Right.
And you don't want to go out in society. So 40% of America is obese in America. 40% of Americans. 30% of that 40 never come out of their home. And people say, well, I don't see that big of a problem. So 50 to 80 million people never come out of their home, Josh, because of obesity. So what happened is that my why are my daughters. When each of my daughters were born, I cut that umbilical cord. I was like, wow, it started getting real. I mean, it was like, okay, I'm seeing my girls. I'm like, okay, I don't want. And then December 26, 2016, my third daughter, Mackenzie, was born. I cut that umbilical cord, Josh, and like a wave came on me. I knew it was getting real. And it was like this wave I remember looking at her crying as I cut that umbilical cord and looking at Mackenzie. And here's what I did. I said, I don't want them to have memories of me in pictures. I want to make memories with them.
Right.
And I want to walk them down the aisle. I don't want somebody else walking them down the aisle. So my why became my daughters. And when you find your why, you find your way.
Yes.
Okay.
And you
So
can tell
what
you had some
is,
passion behind that, because I could hear you tearing up a little
man,
bit, man.
well, this is on like Donkey Kong right
Yeah,
now.
I
I mean,
understand. I understand.
this has made me who I am. And would I change any of my past? Never. I would. People ask me, what would you do? You have any regret? No. I am what I. If I would have had one small fracture, would have made me who I am. Not to have the empathy that I have, the passion I have, the compassion. So what happened is, Josh, I come home and we had to. My wife we had to go there real early, like 4 o'clock in the morning. You know that when she had to be at the hospital. So I remember coming home that day, and I'm sitting there watching my two oldest play. My mother-in-law was going to take my daughters, and so I can get some rest. Well, I didn't get any rest. I decided I've had 30 plus trainers turn me away. I sought for trainers, Josh,
Wow.
and they turned me away. They didn't want. They said no, 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 or you take my product, I'll take you on. And I didn't want them to exploit me. They wanted me to take their drink or their shake,
Yeah.
and I was like,
And market. They wanted to market you.
Exactly. They wanted to exploit me. They wanted me to be their poster child. Okay. And so I said, no, I'm not going to do it. And then I had doctors were dismissive. They treated me like hangnail. Well, you need to lose weight. Okay. What's my hangnail have to do with my weight? That's what they look at. Everybody has to. So I said, and I came home that day, and there's a gym 3 miles away. Okay. This is good stuff right here. I called the gym because I was on my phone. I'm like, that wave that came over me that day, this is the same day Mackenzie was born. And I called, I get on the phone, and I said, man, I'm looking for a trainer. And she says, there's nobody here. I'm the receptionist. I said, okay. Well, here's what I did. I said, I'm going to just pour this out to her. I said, this is it. I'm just going to pour my heart. And I dumped it on her. Like, I just gave her the whole tsunami, man. I just said, I gave it to her.
You
and
had
she was
enough.
over there. She was like, wow, man, Sean, she was really emotional.
Yeah.
And so what happened, she was, I'm going to pass this on to somebody that I think could help you. And I've heard that before.
Yeah.
And I thought that was it. But I just said, I'm going to put it out there. An hour later, Josh, I get a phone call. I'm looking for Sean. This is he. He said, Sean, Brandon Glowworm. He said, I'm with, the gym. And he says, okay. I said, man, Brandon, thanks for calling me. And he gets on there. He goes, man, I heard your story. I got it. I said, he goes, I want to meet you. He said, can you meet this week? I said, my wife just had a child, her third child. He goes, oh, man, okay. He says, how about I come to your home?
Wow.
I said, what? I said, wait a minute. I said, I'm deaf in one ear. And I said, that's my bad ear. Can you tell me that again? He said, how about I come to your home? He came. He said, how about tomorrow at 2? I said, okay. I called my wife. I said, I got a trainer coming to our house tomorrow. She goes, what? She thought she was hallucinating from the medication that they had her on. She's like, no, oh, yeah, okay. Just a pipe dream aspect or whatever. And so I said, no, serious. He'll be here at 2. So Brandon next day came at 2 o'clock. Okay. And I already was, doing everything to, I was trying. I've been on my journey for 6 years. Okay. So for 5 years, I've been spending getting my mind in shape. Okay, it's all about the mindset. If you don't overcome the mind, you're not going to do it. That's bottom line. I tried to get my body. I tried to get my body under subjection for years, and it didn't work. That's why I've been on every try it and diet, and I failed. I lost 1 million pounds, and I gained it back. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So what was Brand? So Brandon came out to your house.
He came out to my house. Okay.
That's what I'm talking about.
We sat there for 2 hours, two and a half hours. And he looked at me, he goes, you're ready for this? I said, yes. He says, I'm going to take you on. Well, I wait a minute. He said, I'm going to take you on. I said, really? He said, yes. He said, let's go. I did not know at the time. He wasn't taking any clients on. He was booked. He was packed to the gill. And I said, well, how much is this going to cost? He goes, I'm taking you on for nothing.
Wow.
I said, wait a minute. I said, that's my deaf ear again. I said, tell me that. I said, get it in my good ear. He says, no, I'm taking you on for nothing.
Wow.
And we sat there, and I said, Brandon, here's the good thing. So all of a sudden, it was my journey, okay?
Yeah.
And he said to me, I said, well, Brandon, have you ever been overweight? He says, never, not 5 pounds overweight. I said, have you ever worked with somebody my size in the 600s?
Right.
He says, never. And I said, so how is this going to work? I said, if you have it, he went to 4 years of college. He's a nutritionist. He's a, whatever, science of the body, whatever he
Oh yeah,
got, you know what I'm
he
saying?
knows it all on fitness.
He knows how how the hairs grow. You know what I'm saying? He
Right.
knows,
Yeah.
whatever,
Right.
work this hair out and you'll get muscles in it.
Yeah.
He knows
I got
knows
you.
all that.
I got you.
So I said to him, I said, well, how are you going to, and here's what he said to me. He says, you want to learn from me, don't you? I said, yes, I do. I said, I'm a bodybuilder, Josh. I built it with the wrong things. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I built it with cars, body by bread. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So everybody's a bodybuilder. You just build it with the wrong things or the right things. So
True that.
I said to him, I said, well, how? He goes, you want to learn from me? I said, yes. And here's what he said to me that changed my life. He says, I want to learn from you.
Awesome. Because he know what you've been through, man. He thought he had heard your story.
He said, I want to learn from you so we could help that population you told me about.
That's what's
And
up.
so what happened is we waited a couple weeks after my daughter got home, Mackenzie. We got settled in. January 10th, I started in the gym first time. Okay, the first time I was in the gym since I went to high school. And I went to the gym, and he put me through a 30-minute workout. And I tell you, my hair was hurting, my toenails were hurting, it was on. I was like, man, but I felt so good. I felt great. And so what I did is I had a public figure page. I had about 300 people on it. I did nothing with it. And I said to him, I said, well, hey, I said, Brandon, I want to put my rear end out there even as far as I can go. He says, well, what do you mean? I said, I want you to video me doing the battle ropes. And I did the battle ropes.
Uh-huh.
That thing gives you a full body workout. And he said to me, he says, okay. So he filmed me. He went around me as I'm doing the battle ropes for 30 seconds.
And we're going a little bit over it today, just to let everybody know. No worries. We want to hear Sean's story, and our time came up quickly, so we're going to go over a few more minutes to hear what Sean's last final little thing is on his story, and then we got a golden nugget question for him. So go ahead.
Awesome.
Sean.
Well, thanks, Josh. I
appreciate
it. Hey, sorry everybody for keeping that long-winded, man. They tell me Josh just needs to tell me to shut up.
No, man, you're good.
Shut up, Sean.
You're good. We want to hear your story, man. It's awesome.
So, thank you, Josh. Thank you. And he said, so he went to the gym. He filmed that, okay? And so I put it out there. I wanted to do it, be more accountable to my family and friends to show, hey, I'm in this to win it, okay? And so I put that out there, and that was January 10th. January 14th, I posted it to a Facebook page. And within 4 hours, it got 200,000 views.
Wow.
Yes. And then by the next day, it had 1.2 million, reached 2.3 million people. And it went, I got blew up. Everybody was, coming in there all over the world. I'm talking just people, man, way to go, man.
Yeah,
and I said,
motivation.
My dreams are bigger than my excuse. Exactly. And so then all of a sudden it went, and now to this day, my Facebook posts right now have reached almost 30 million views since January 2017. And last year on LinkedIn, I'm at almost 16 million views on LinkedIn. Instagram, I'm like at 13 million views of my videos on Instagram. And so I've been featured in Forbes magazine this past January. I was on Fox. I was on NBC. I was on the biggest morning show, This Morning UK, back in August this last year. 25 million live viewers.
Wow.
And so what happened is it was my journey has turned into a movement, but then turned into the obesity revolution. And I have 100+ people that reach out to me a week that are struggling with obesity and that have started their weight loss journey from the time. I get messages every week. I lost 100 pounds. I didn't tell anybody. I started whenever I seen your first video. I'm down 100 pounds. I'm down 50 pounds. I'm down 75 pounds. And then they just started coming in there. And then so it started the revolution. And now what the incredible thing here, Brandon, I am down 105 pounds.
Awesome.
Right now, still going. Some groundbreaking things. I have now a doctor, Dr. Kip Van Camp, who is our doctor, who is our obesity doctor for the obesity revolution. I have Brandon, who is now he's our lead trainer, and now we have Bobby Capuccio, who's going to be doing coaching for us, who's helped 24-hour fitness,
Wow.
Gold's Gym. He's
Big
big. He's
time.
smoking the idea conference. So what we're doing is all this is built around. So my pain has become my greatest platform. And you know
Yeah.
what I found out, Josh?
What's that?
You don't have to be perfect to inspire people. You just have to show people how you deal with your imperfections.
That is
And
so
that's all.
true.
I was being honest and showing
Yeah.
I'm juggling.
Yeah, you was
I'm
being
juggling the
yourself.
struggle. Yeah, exactly. That's me. And you know
Yeah.
what the thing is that what's unique about it is there's people that have been 600, 700 pounds that have lost their weight, but they never show the back door. They always show it whenever they lose their weight.
Right.
I'm showing it going
The
through
whole
the
story.
process.
Yeah,
The whole story and nothing but the
And
story.
nobody shows that. That is so true. That is
No,
awesome.
no, because
So
nobody wants to show
nobody wants. Yeah.
their
No.
whole body.
Exactly.
And no.
So what would
And
be?
you know what the cool thing is, and I
What's
didn't mean to
that?
cut you off. Go ahead.
So what would be
Here's what's cool. The last thing.
your golden nugget right here? Last thing, like you said, what's your golden nugget that you have to
My
tell
golden nugget?
the audience today?
Here's what I say is that, you know what? Your past, you can get past your past. You don't have to let your past dictate to you on where you're going in life. You don't have to let anything that's defeated you to keep you down. And you know what? You're only a quitter. You're only a failure if you quit.
Right.
Failure is part of success, and all success is failure turned inside out. So I've learned a lot how to fail. I've learned a lot on failure plus failure plus failure plus failure plus failure equals success. And the thing is that you've got to stick to it. Is that not just doing it and trying to get that instantaneous? There's nothing
Right.
instantaneous. Anything that's instantaneous doesn't taste good. You got to have that slow cook process, that slow, that everything has to go through and be what it needs to be as far as that's concerned, Josh.
Right.
And so what happened is then I said this, and Brandon, who was awesome, my trainer, we did a contest back in January with my Fox interview, and here's the incredible golden nugget. We had a contest, and we were going to have, he wanted to take 4 more people on that were reaching out to me at no cost for 6 months, okay? So we had them write an essay, 250-word essay, right? So when he wrote that essay, we had we had hundreds, almost, I think, 500 different people that applied for this, that was a contestant all over the world. So he's going to take 2 on in St. Louis and 2 anywhere else in the world. Well, we went through them, we divvied them up, had a team of 10, got down to the 10 finalists, and here's what happened. He took them and came back, and the next step was he was going to call them and say that they were a finalist, that he's going to get it down to the final 4. He came back to me after that, Josh, and here's what he said. He said, Sean, I can't take on 4. I said, what do you mean? He says, I got to take on all 10.
Wow.
He took on all 10. Our first meeting was January 13th, almost a year to the day whenever I started my weight loss in the gym. They came there, and since February, they are now down collectively 300 pounds since February. And so right now we're starting a whole program, a whole membership that we're getting ready to launch that's going to have the medical evaluation, a training evaluation, and coaching for them to change their behavior, change their mindset, and make them make good selections in their eating.
So they can reach you through how do they reach you? They go to this website, the obesityrevolution.com, and they can reach you on there.
They can reach me on there. Everything's there. All my social media is there. They can sign up. We're doing free registration right now. We had 1,000 people sign up last week that are ready, that are to go. And we're going to start getting more and more people.
So you got to jump on it. You got to jump on it.
Jump on it.
You got to jump on it while you can, because it's going to be a hot commodity already, and so it's just a matter of time before it's going to start costing an arm and leg probably. Because
we're going to make it affordable.
You got to do something.
You got to, Josh, and that's what we're working on, and we want to make it to where I want to be the person that I needed when I was in the darkest period.
Yes.
And I want a program that I needed.
And that's so awesome, because I feel like we should all be that. We should all, and that's the same thing, I feel like I kind of can relate a little bit to that, because I'm trying to help my cousin out. He's 18, just graduated, and he's been working with me a little bit this summer, and I've been trying to help him out. And, I feel like the same thing. I wish that somebody would have gave me that opportunity when I was 18. I was working 2 jobs and going to college at the time, so Like
Sure.
it's so crazy how everybody has different paths, but we can all relate, which is why we have this
Yes.
awesome show called A Bit of Advice, where we
Nice.
can talk
Love it.
about these things, and we hope that you can relate, and we hope that you can learn something from it, because that's what we're all here for, is to learn and grow in our life and experience things, the good and the bad. You always have to be thankful. I feel like that's the number one thing that we should
I
always
agree.
be, is thankful no matter what, whether the good or the bad, because if you're always thankful, that appreciation goes so much further,
Good.
and it builds character
It
and
does.
personality. So
Yes, it
we thank you
does.
so much, Sean. You've been awesome today, man. I mean, like, I feel like the time flew by. I was like, whoa, like, we're already past the time, and like, I was
No,
still ready for like the second part of the story. So maybe we can get on this again
let's do
another
it.
day and have a
Sure,
part
I'd love
two,
it.
because
I would love it.
I think that our audience would love to hear from you again as well. So maybe in a couple months, when we have, because we have
Yes.
a whole lot of people lined up right now. So maybe in a couple months
Sure.
we have you back out. So everybody, y'all stay
I'd be
tuned for the future. We will let you know when Sean's back on air with us. But we thank y'all so much for joining us today, and we hope you enjoyed the
yes.
show. And Sean, thank you so much for taking your time out
Thanks,
today
Josh.
and explaining your passionate story. And we just thank you for being a great person all around and helping so many
Thanks.
people that are scared to come out of their shell, and you're helping them. You're helping them come out of their
Yes.
shell, and that's so important, because it's like I was saying earlier. There's so much negativity in this world. It's good to
Yes.
find some positive. So y'all
Yes.
stay tuned.
Absolutely.
Next week we have a great guest. I'm excited about next week's guest as well. So we will see you next week. Thank you all for tuning in on A Bit of Advice.
See you.